All right. We have uh, got some announcements here and coming about to check out here. And so let's see here. Is our online audience on? Hello to our online audience. Hope you're doing well wherever you might be in TV land or internet land or whatever you want to call that. And so we're glad that you've joined us. And and hello, Mom. I told you I'd say hello. All right, so we have a number of things going on here. The directory is completed. It's out there in the foyer. So grab that. Men's Prayer Breakfast is this coming Saturday, March 29th, 8 a.m. in the annex. We hope to see our men and boys there. Following that, we have our spring work day. And there's always a lot of things to get done. The more people we have come, the quicker we can get things just taken care of. And also the better the job we can do as well. And so it would be great if we could have as many people here as possible. There's also sign-up sheets for that out in the foyer for that as well. And again, that's this coming Saturday. And again, even if you have not signed up and you say you're watching online, you're still welcome to come on Saturday and be part of that. All right, so that's this coming Saturday, Picnic in the Park. As I mentioned earlier, on April 6th, we have Picnic in the Park. On April 6th, that's a Sunday afternoon, and it's from 3 to 6 o'clock. And believe it or not, and again, this is to our online audience, I've had 2 different families from across the state say, hey, we watch y'all online. We want to come to Picnic in the Park. So we're actually going to have people from other congregations from different areas of Florida coming. So yeah, come on over. But let us know. It'd be nice so we have enough burgers for everybody. But yeah, that's great. We're going to have an Easter egg hunt and everything. But if you're coming, make sure you come from the direction of Nova. So go to Nova. Is it Nova Avenue? Street? Road? Okay. So go to Nova. And when you get on Nova, go east off of Nova onto Fleming. Correct? Yes. East on Fleming off of Nova. Take Fleming all the way till you see Central Park. And that will be on your left, and you'll pull into Central Park, and that's where we will be. And there's a pavilion. Just follow that little road into Central Park. You will see at the end, there'll be I think there's 2 or 3 different parking lots. Find the best parking spot for you, and we'll be there. Bring a lawn chair if you can. Bring whatever things you like to bring for enjoying being at the park. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's actually a really nice park. I think we're going to have a great time. I spent a lot of hours there. I know a number of y'all have. For those of you who have never been there, it's really, our Central Park is better than New York's. So just want you to go ahead and know that right now. It's really nice. Or if it, maybe. I don't know. I can't say it's safer, but it's close. It's probably right there on par. But it's actually really nice. I really do like our Central Park. It's very nice, and you're going to enjoy it. There are a lot of there's a lot of wildlife, and it's really pretty, and I think you're going to enjoy it. There's an Easter egg hunt. It's going to go from 3 to 6. We are in need of a few things. We need grill masters. Right now, I have 1 grill master. Our grill master, as talented as he is, needs more help. So we need more grill masters. We need more people helping with other things. So make sure you sign up. You'll see what we need. It's there in the foyer again, right there on that white table. People to sign up. Please come and do that. We really do need help making sure it all gets taken care of, and also sign up for it as well. We're really looking forward to Picnic in the Park. All right. So Momentum Workshops April 4th through 5th. April 4th, the evening thing is more of just kind of an introduction worship thing, and then the 5th is when the big workshop is. That's a Saturday. And then there's a game night April 11th, and that's going to be in the annex at 6:30. There will be a variety of games. You're welcome to bring snacks, especially if you want to eat snacks, correct? Bring snacks if you want snacks. That's how it works. All right, so that's it. We've got our announcements. We've done it. Okay, so now, you know how people don't like judging? You don't want to be judged? Well, now we're going to look at the book of Judges. So there's going to be a whole lot of judging going on for the next 8 weeks. But it's a different kind of judging. And so we're going to be looking at basically a lot of people that need judgment, but they need the judgment of as far as leadership. And so we're going to look at Judges chapter 1, and we're going to spend the next 8 weeks looking at Judges. And Judges is one of those books where it seems as if once you leave Sunday school as elementary age, you just never look at it again, typically. Maybe you hear a sermon here or there, but typically, as a kid, I remember looking at the book of Judges several times, but somewhere around 6th grade, I don't remember having a lot of lessons or sermons that really came out of the book of Judges, and a lot of Bible classes, and that's on me as well. I don't remember teaching a whole lot out of the book of Judges, and so I thought, why not? And I'm doing that right now. It's a very different kind of class. I'm doing that with the young adult group as well, so I'm kind of doing both with the young adults and with this group. And so we're going to look at the book of Judges over the next 8 weeks, and we're going to be going a little bit faster than the young adult group is going. But I hope this will be a blessing to you. I find the book of Judges to be fascinating because there is a little bit of, again, being a history nut or a history nerd, and there's a little bit of anthropology going on here. There's some fascinating things that you learn about history that it kind of says there's some things going on here that shouldn't be going on, and I'll bring those things up. Things, for example, if you were digging up, say you were an archaeologist and you were at the pyramids and you were working as an archaeologist, say you are Iowa Jones, or not like Indiana, but say you're just Iowa Jones. And so Iowa Jones, you're digging up the pyramids, and as you're digging up things, you start looking, you go, oh, look, that's, wow, we dug deep in here, we found some typical Egyptian things. But along the Egyptian things, oh, wow, I found a 357 Magnum. Wow, that just shouldn't be there. But interestingly enough, where you found the 357 Magnum, the gun, it's clearly been in the same place, settled in with the Egyptian stuff. There's no way it could have been put there later on. And you're going, how can this be? How could something so far advanced be put in with something so ancient? Well, there's a few, nothing that crazy happens in the book of Judges, but there are a few things in the book of Judges where you will see super advanced things mixed with some super, well, less advanced things. And it's just kind of shocking. And so I will show you where you need to be shocked. If you don't know where to be shocked, I'll help you be shocked, okay? All right. We'll move on. So the book of Judges covers a period of between the death of Joshua and the rise of the monarchy. So we're talking 1400 BC to around 1000 BC. So we're talking over 3,000 years ago. That's a long time ago. And so it's a big stretch of time. We're talking, so it's about 300 to 400 years is the time of the book of Judges. So this book of Judges covers a big stretch of time. And after Joshua's death, Israel is a kind of this loose group of tribes. No centralized leadership. Their main leader is who? Well, but he's gone now, so it is God, and that's it. There's no really centralized leadership, and so the Canaanite conquest has become incomplete, and because of the incomplete conquest, there is social instability, spiritual instability, and in fact, the failure to drive out the Canaanites leads to generational drifts away from God. So in other words, generation one, yes, we're God-focused. We came in here and God has given us the land. Well, they have children, and their children, they kind of forget what God has done. They kind of see it a little bit, but they kind of, like it's not as big a deal. Their children, on the other hand, so now the grandchildren of the first generation, they haven't seen any of it. And But what they do see, they haven't seen any of what God has done, and their families haven't really been talking God up like they should be. They haven't been teaching about God like they should be. But what they have seen are all of these Canaanite shrines, these high places, the Asherah poles and the Baal worship going on, and other things going on that was never driven out like it should have been. And the young people go, well, that looks fun. That looks interesting. And so that starts to impact the younger generations. And we see that happen throughout the book of Judges. It's a cycle over and over and over again. And by the way, this is just kind of a footnote. Why do the if you ever wonder about the Pharisees, why do they exist in the time of Jesus? Why are they there? Why are they so dogmatic? And why do they have so much power? And why do people listen to them? And why are they so important in the time of Jesus? Well, it's because the Pharisees rose to power because, well, Israel didn't want to see this kind of thing happen again. They wanted to have enough spiritual leadership that would teach the people to be so God-focused that they would never go back to idolatry ever again. And so that was the value of the Pharisees. And so that's kind of the importance of the Pharisees. Of course, that doesn't happen for another, well, about 900 years. So ignore that. All right, so let's go ahead and read a little bit, Joshua chapter 1. And yes, there are words I'm going to mess up. If you can do better, you can feel free to let me know afterwards. But not during, because this is being taped and I don't want to be embarrassed. My mom is watching. Joshua 1, verse 1. After Joshua died, the Israelites asked the Lord, who should lead the invasion against the Canaanites and launch the attack? The Lord said, the men of Judah should take the lead. Be sure of this, I am handing the land over to them. The men of Judah said to their relatives, the men of Simeon, invade our allotted land with us and help us attack the Canaanites, and then we'll go with you into your allotted land. So the men of Simeon went with them. The men of Judah attacked, and the Lord handed the Canaanites and the Perizzites over to them. They killed 10,000 men at Bezek. They met at Adonai-Bezek at Bezek and fought him. They defeated the Canaanites and Perizzites. When Adonai-Bezek ran away, they chased him and captured him. Gets gross. Then they cut off his thumbs and big toes. Adonai-Bezek said, 70 kings and with thumbs and big toes cut off used to lick up food scraps under my table. God has repaid me for what I did to them. They brought him to Jerusalem where he died. The men of Judah attacked Jerusalem and captured it. They put the sword to it and set the city on fire. Later, the men of Judah went down to attack the Canaanites living in the hill country, the Negev and the foothills. The men of Judah attacked the Canaanites living in Hebron. Hebron used to be called Kiriath Arba. They killed Shashai, this is one of those, Ahiman, and Talmai. From there, they attacked the people of Debir. Debir used to be called Kiriath Sefer. Caleb said, to the men who attack and captures Kiriath Sefer, I'll give my daughter Achish as a wife. And then Othniel, son of Kenaz, Caleb's younger brother, captured it. Caleb gave his daughter Achish as a wife. One time Achish came and charmed her father so she could ask him for some land. When she got down from her donkey, Caleb said to her, what would you like? She answered, please give me a special present. Since you have given me the land in that Negev, now give me some springs of water. So Caleb gave her both the upper and lower springs. Now the descendants of the Kenite, Moses' father-in-law, went up with the people of Judah from the city of the date palm trees to Arad, in the wilderness of Judah, located in the Negev. They went and lived there with the people of Judah. The men of Judah went with the brothers, the men of Simeon, and defeated the Canaanites living in Zephath. They wiped out Zephath, so the people now called the city Hormah. The men of Judah captured Gaza, Ashkelon, Ekron, and the territory surrounding each of these cities. The Lord was with the men of Judah. They conquered the hill country, but they could not conquer the people living in the coastal plain because they had chariots with iron-rimmed wheels. Now check that out. They had chariots with iron-rimmed wheels. Caleb received Hebron and lived as Moses had promised. He drove out the three Anakites. And the men of Benjamin, however, did not conquer the Jebusites living in Jerusalem. The Jebusites live with the people of Benjamin in Jerusalem to this very day. So, a couple of key things. Jerusalem, Jebusite fortress. It really will not be captured and become a true Israelite Jewish community until the time of David. So that's one thing that's important to know. But one of those things where you go, ooh, I want to be shocked. One is iron-rimmed wheels. Did you know there was a time where people would say that should not happen in the year 1400 BC? Because guess what age this is called? Yeah. So what gives? Well, as it turns out, guess who was the most advanced people on earth at this time? It was not the Egyptians. It's the Canaanites. And the reason why is because these are trade peoples that are trading both. This is the trade territories of the entire world. That's why everybody wants the land of Israel, even now, but even back then. People wanted this land because it links Asia and Europe and Africa all together. And so these trade routes brings all of, not only spices and goods, but also brings knowledge. And so you just imagine if you live and own this territory, you're going to have wealth, and you're also going to have knowledge, and you're going to have power. And of course, we know, we are pretty sure that the Phoenician people are coming from the north, and they're connected to the ancient Greek people, and they're going to be bringing a lot of their knowledge their way. And so we're already seeing that there are people who have some seriously big-time technology during the Bronze Age. We're talking about chariots with iron on them in the Bronze Age. So let me paint the picture for you, just what it was like for the nation, for the tribes of Israel as they entered the land of Canaan. Imagine everything was reversed. Imagine it was that North America was not owned by Native Americans, but owned by European colonies. But one day, all of a sudden, canoes started coming across the seas with people with bows and arrows. The people lived in teepees. And they start showing up on the shores, and they come to a land where all these people live in a land with fortresses and with guns, and they have established governments and cities. Now, you're thinking right now, these people that are coming across in canoes with their best weapons being spears and bows and arrows, they're not going to have a chance, right? And they wouldn't, right? Because we know the story of the conquest of North America, it didn't work out well for the native people that lived here. Well, flip that. That's really what happens in Canaan. Canaan is this well-fortified, organized, and sophisticated technology-wise. It's way superior to the nation of Israel. They have iron. Do you know what iron does against? You know what bronze does against iron? So, like, say this would be iron, and this is bronze. So, iron, bronze. Do you want to go into a battle with bronze against iron? No. And of course, the Israelites didn't even have bronze. You know why? Because they're not even that sophisticated. They had wood. They had sticks. They had farm equipment, and that's what they fought with. Why did the Israelites win? We know the answer. They had God. So, do you know how scary it must have been to the Canaanites when they start seeing, wow, these people who are so backwards, they're not just one generation behind us, they are hundreds of years behind us when it comes to technology. There's nothing sophisticated about them. They have no understanding of war. They don't know how to fight even. And they're beating us as if we are nobody, as if we are nothing, as if it's easy. It would have been terrifying to the Canaanites because they realized it has nothing to do about weapons. It has nothing to do with technology. It has nothing to do with knowledge of fighting. It has everything to do with whose God you're serving, whose God who do you belong to. And so but the book of Judges does give us a little bit of insight, though, into the technology of these different groups. And so you do see that when the people of Israel, when they're not serving God, when they are no longer connected to God, you can see now they are having to use their own technology, their own knowledge, and it's not good enough because now they're having to deal with people who are, well, they have iron-rimmed wheels. In other words, they're having to deal with people who are way more advanced than they are. And if you are dealing with people who are way more advanced than you are, and you're not serving God, and God's not on your side because you're not faithful to Him, guess what's going to happen to you? Yeah, you're in trouble. And that really is, once again, the story that's going to happen in the book of Judges over and over again. And so let me read something to you. Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 1. If you have your Bible, you want to look at this one, or at least write this down and read it later. Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 1. It says this: when the Lord your God brings you to the land you're going to occupy and forces out many nations before you, the Hittites, the Girgashites, the Amorites, the Canaanites, Perizzites, Hivites, Jebusites, 7 nations more numerous and powerful than you. And by the way, that's not an exaggeration. Nations more numerous and powerful than you. God is telling the truth there. And He delivers them over to you and you attack them. You must utterly annihilate them. Make no treaty with them and show them no mercy. You must not intermarry with them. Do not give your daughters to their sons or take their daughters for your sons, for they will turn your sons away from me to worship other gods. Then the anger of the Lord will erupt against you, and He will quickly destroy you. Instead, this is what you must do to them. You must tear down their altars, shatter their sacred pillars, cut down their sacred Asherah poles, and burn up their idols. This is what they're told to do before they go there. So this is before they take the land. They don't do that. And guess what's going to happen? You're thinking, well, they showed mercy, right? No, what happens is now there's just going to be a whole lot more people dying. And there's going to be a whole lot more, the description I'm going to use is terrible. There's going to be more raping and murdering and pillaging and stealing and just awful, evil things happening for hundreds of years because these people just would not obey God. If they had just listened to God right off the bat, things would have been way easier, and a lot more people would have been saved, and there'd be a lot less killing, a lot less death. And so, why do you think the people of Israel failed to complete the conquest? Well, yeah, it is. Maybe that's part of it. I think you're right. I mean, you. At some point, though, if you keep on winning battle after battle against people, even though I know that it's, you think about the man who stands up against the tank at Tiananmen Square in China. He was willing to do that for his cause. It was not for the cause of Christ, I don't think. It was for his cause was probably, I don't know what his cause was, but he was standing up against the cause, I guess, of communism, against the government of China at the time. But he was willing to stand up against a tank. A person against a tank, well, that's not going to work out well, but he was willing to do that. And so, I guess my point is, the people of Israel were willing to stand up against superior forces for a while, even though it was scary. And they had success. God gave them success. So why would they just stop doing that? Why would they give in when God had shown them so much success? And maybe that's a mixture of both answers right there. I think that's it. I think there's a little bit of fear. I think when you think about it, when you start thinking about it being you, and if you start focusing on you, then the fear comes in. And so that might, both of those answers I think are correct. What else? Yes. Yeah, I think there's let's think about this. Let's talk about this on a daily spiritual practice. Every day we wake up and we have to ask the question, who do I serve? What's my purpose in life? Am I here to live life for me? Am I here to live life for my family? Am I here to live life for my country? Am I here to party, or am I here to get as much stuff as possible? Remember back in the 80s, there was those posters that would have a picture of a big mansion with a giant garage, and it had a Lamborghini and a Ferrari and a bunch of other cool cars. And by the way, I did have this poster. And do you remember what the poster said? He who has the most toys. Yeah. Is that the purpose? Is that why we live? Well, I mean, and so you have to ask the question each day when you wake up, what's the point? And so Saul had to wake up, as was brought up, and these people had to wake up each day and go, well, what's the point? Who am I? What am I doing this for? And if you're waking up and start thinking it's all about us or all about me, boy, we can mess things up in a hurry, can't we? Yeah, pride, selfishness, arrogance. And I think really too, I think Saul's a good example of someone who goes, well, I sure want to, I'm a good guy. I don't want to kill those people over there. They're not so bad. But the thing is, the people that he doesn't want to kill, guess what those people are doing to other people? They're killing a lot of people. So he's doing, so literally when Saul the king, ignore the Paul, when Saul the king would make these deals, and when Israel, going back into the book time of the Judges, when they would make these deals with these other tribes, with these other people, they're literally making a deal with the devil. Because think about who they're making deals with. They're making deals with people who kill children, child sacrifice. They're doing deals with people who have no problem abusing women. They're doing deals with people who have no problem taking and stealing and killing other people for sport. That's who they were showing mercy to, and who they were then in turn allowing themselves to be influenced by. That's who they're allowing their children now to be influenced by. And so maybe it looks like mercy on some level, but is it really that merciful? Is it really that good an idea? Because what is it going to lead to in the long run? And again, this is the ancient world. The ancient world is really different than it is now. I get that.
The name of the book was What Does God Want? And I think we forget, what does God want?
Yeah.
In our daily lives. And that's what they forgot. They forgot, here they have this mighty, mighty God that can do anything and everything, and yet they forget what he wanted.
Yeah.
He only wanted them.
Well, I think part of it, and then
they're like, okay, well, we've done that, great, we won that, now we're going to go back and live our lives again. It's not really, I don't know, sometimes I think when we think about people, we think about too much, well, they're selfish, or they're this, or they're that, and I really think that people sometimes are just tired, and they just don't feel like doing things.
Well, maybe a little bit complacency then. Yeah. Well, complacency is a dangerous thing, right? Uh,
They tell them to kill the people. As well, these people could be slaves.
yeah.
They're dirty women, why don't they? Or these idols and stuff like that. These are neat looking things. Let's just take them, and we know how to use them and stuff like that. So why should let's do that about that?
Yeah. Well, one of the things that one of the benefits when people realize when you are an inferior people and you're able to dominate a superior people who are way more advanced than you, one of the things you quickly realize is like, wow, if we, rather than kill them, we can then enslave them. Guess what we can now have them do for us? They can teach our children. They can teach us how to do superior things. And that's probably was one of the things that they were trying to do. And historically, that's happened in the past. So all you have to do is look at the Muslim conquest. That was a pretty common thing. That's why algebra became, that's why we have algebra, by the way. Blame the Muslim conquest. Because they were able to enslave a bunch of the most logical people, the Greeks, as possible in the area of Saudi Arabia, and in over 100 years, they were able to discover zero. So, good job by them. So if you hate algebra, blame that. Blame them. All right, moving on. I think really that God commanded Israel commanded total removal to prevent Israel from being influenced by pagan worship, by immoral practices. I think partial obedience opened the door for future compromise. I think that's really the thing you could say here. Is there's a future compromise, and the compromises will be coming. And by the way, other groups are coming in. That's the other thing. Once you when the Philistines were also coming into this region just ahead of the Israelites. The Philistines actually were not from here. They're from somewhere else. We don't really actually know where they're from. There's a lot of theories where they're from. But the Philistines were looking at the Promised Land also as the Promised Land. And so they were a little bit ahead of the Israelites as far as their taking over, their conquest of this land. And so by Israel not having, not moving forward with a total conquest, it opens the door for a stronger conquest by the Philistines, meaning the Israelites will have to deal with the Philistines for hundreds and hundreds of years. Again, and this will be due to their compromise. So what is the danger to partial obedience in our own spiritual lives? So we got to do some application here. What are the dangers to partial obedience in our own lives?
With them, we would have, we would compromise our beliefs, our actions, our outlook, and our hope. It all gets compromised because we only have a partial obedience. Yeah, it creates space for temptation, right? When basic partial obedience leads to temptation, it leads to decline spiritually. It leads to compromise, usually to disobedience over time. If it's not us, it's usually someone else later. I remember a couple months ago we talked about King Manasseh. I don't know. It looks like maybe it says he repented, even though it says that he was probably the most evil king of all of Judah, and that it was his decisions that led to the fall of Judah, the Southern Empire.
it looks like he repented. But because of his evil behaviors, all of it, it leads to the death of his children. Not just physical death, but spiritual death of his children and so many of his grandchildren to this nation, which just goes to show us sometimes, even though maybe you can come back, maybe you have the opportunity to come back, but sometimes our compromise spiritually, it can lead to some disastrous impact on others. And we definitely see that in the time of the book of Judges. Judah will have some success, but it will fail at other times. I want to read a little bit to you because the second half of chapter 1 is fun and it's interesting. Verse 22 of chapter 1 says, when the men of Joseph attacked Bethel, the Lord was with them. When the men of Joseph spied out Bethel, it used to be called Luz. Bethel is a much nicer name than Luz, right? Verse 24, the spies spotted a man leaving the city. They said to him, if you show us a secret entrance into the city, we will reward you. He showed them a secret entrance into the city, and they put the city to the sword. But they let the man and his extended family leave safely. He moved to Hittite country and built a city. He named it Luz, and it was kept that name to this very day. The men of Manasseh did not conquer Beth Shean, and they will regret that. Tanakh of their surrounding towns, nor did they conquer the people living in Dor, Ablim, Megiddo, or the surrounding towns. The Canaanites managed to remain in those areas. Whenever Israel was strong militarily, they forced the Canaanites to do hard labor, but they never totally conquered them. By the way, Beth Shean, do you remember which great Israelite leader will die in battle, and he and his sons will be displayed, their bodies will be displayed there? Yep, Saul will be there. And that's just and Israel really never was able to keep that land, Beth Shean, because of their compromise, Manasseh's compromise. They were never able to collect that area of Beth Shean. And by the way, I've been to Beth Shean. It's one of the most unreal places ever. There's the Roman city, and I forgot what the name of the Roman city is. It surrounds the ancient city of Beth Shean, and it's one of the best preserved Roman cities in the ancient world. And right next to it, if you look it up on your phone, you can look it up right now. I won't judge you if you do, but you ought to look it up. It's spelled, it's pretty cool. It's B-E-T-H. The next word is S-H-E-A-N. And it's a beautiful place. It'll show you a Roman city, and then in the background you'll see a hill. And that is not a natural hill. That is what they call a tell, and that is the tell. That's called Tel Beth Shan, and that is actually where that is the actual ancient city of Beth Shan, and it's so old. It's thousands of years old. It was over 1,000 years old when the Israelites got there. It's that old. And what would happen is it would be attacked, it would be conquered, they would level it, and then build a city on top of it. And it happened so many times that it went from being level to the ground to being about 100 feet high. And so we don't know how many times it's been conquered. But it's a steep hill. If you look at the picture of it, it's kind of unbelievable. But that's the city that Saul and his sons their bodies were displayed after the battle. But it's just an example, though. It's a place that just shows you that's the kind of place that Canaan was. That's how there was just so much death. There was so much that's the place that God is trying to take Israel into, and for them to bring His goodness, His morality into it, and to remove all the evil. But Israel continues to compromise with the evil, and because of that, you're going to continue to have more evil there. And Beth Shan is a good example of a place that they never really ever get rid of it. Megiddo is another example of it too. And Megiddo, by the way, do you know what the other name of it is famously? Armageddon. You've heard of that, right? Yeah, Armageddon. All right, so, and then verse 29. The men of Ephraim did not conquer the Canaanites living in Gezer. The Canaanites lived among them in Gezer, so that wasn't a good idea. Verse 30. The men of Zebulun did not conquer the people living in Kitron or Nahel. The Canaanites lived among them and were forced to do hard labor. The men of Asher did not conquer the people living in Akko, Sidon, nor did they conquer I'm not going to say any of those names. Verse 32, the people of Asher live among the Canaanites residing in the land because they did not conquer them. Are you seeing a pattern here? Israel continues to just compromise. They're giving up. Did God give them the power to defeat these people? So what's happened? They, not some, they quit. They've absolutely quit. The men of Naphtali did not, verse 33, the men of Naphtali did not conquer the people living in Beth Shemesh or Beth Anath. They live among the Canaanites residing in the land. The Canaanites living in Beth Shemesh and Beth Anath were forced to do hard labor for them. The Amorites forced the people of Dan to live in the hill country, and they did not allow them to live in the coastal plain. The Amorites managed to remain in Harris and Ajalon and Sheblam. Whenever the tribe of Joseph was strong militarily, the Amorites were forced to do hard labor, or the Amorites were forced to do hard labor. The border of the Amorite territory ran from Scorpion Ascent to Selah and on up. The reason why it's important to see this is chapter 1 shows you the ultimate failure. Chapter 1 is the failure chapter. Chapter 1 shows you what goes wrong and why there's going to be about 500 years of, 450 years of fighting. And God is going to use one person to kind of fix it all. Who's he going to use? Nope, none of the judges will be able to do it. It'll be David. King David's going to be the one that fixes it all. Not even Saul. In fact, if you look at a map, and maybe we'll work on a map. The map, Saul's territory will be pretty tiny. David will be the one that will finally take the territory. David will be the one that will finally conquer all of this land that was supposed to have been taken right after Joshua. David is the one that finally does it 450 years later. It wasn't supposed to be that way. So imagine how many thousands, if not millions of people died because of compromise. Just imagine what happens to men, women, and children because of compromise. So now you think, was that really mercy? No. And so that brings us to, any thoughts before we go into Judges chapter 2? Yes.
I've been kind of thinking on this throughout. Probably the biggest danger with compromise, in Jeremiah, I believe, said that the heart is deceitful above all else. My understanding from what I've been told is that all through here, they hadn't, yes, they had abandoned God, but in their minds, they had not abandoned God. And we know they didn't forget about him, because otherwise, how would they be calling out to him when things got bad?
Right.
They probably thought they were still following God and Baal. And we can do the same thing. We can compromise, and we can have, we can think we're serving God, but really we have self, or anything else, but most things boil down to self on the throne.
Yeah, it's really hard to say. It's really hard to say really what was going on in the hearts and minds of people there. But you're right. There's something definitely going on there as far as there's definitely still a connection there, because eventually they do cry out, as you're saying, for sure. It's very interesting. Chapter 2, verse 1. The angel of the Lord went up from Gilgal to Bochum. He said, I brought you up from Egypt and led you into the land I solemnly promised to give you to your ancestors. I said, I will never break my covenant with you, but you must not make an agreement with the people you live in this land. You should tear down the altars where they worship, but you have disobeyed me. Why would you do such a thing? At that time I also warned you, if you disobey, I will not drive out the Canaanites before you. They will ensnare you, and their gods will lure you away. When the angel of the Lord finished speaking these words to all the Israelites, the people wept loudly. They named that place Bochum and offered sacrifices to the Lord there. And so there you go. It's so we read the Deuteronomy 7 passage a moment ago, and now we're seeing that they disobeyed that. Now they're kind of being told, they're being rebuked and saying, because you did this, this is what's going to happen now. And by the way, just so you know, when it comes to total annihilation, we see over and over again that some of the annihilation does, what we don't see is that there is some form of opportunity for people to repent in these people. I don't think there was a jihad where the sword was to their neck, but we see too many times where later on in the Old Testament where you'll see these people that are of these tribes, of these enemies of Israel, that some of them will become, well, followers of God. You'll see that with Hittites and Amorites and Moabites, and so I don't know how that happens, what exactly happened, or what took place, but there were people who witnessed the goodness of God's people, the goodness of God, and they said, I want to be that. I want to do that. And so there is that, just so you know. And so we know that on some level there was on some level conversion going on, where people were leaving these other groups and becoming faithful to God and becoming Jewish, or proselytes, I guess. So that was happening. I don't know on what level, but it was happening. Verse 6. When Joshua dismissed the people, the Israelites went to their allotted portions of territory, intending to take possession of the land. The people worshiped the Lord throughout Joshua's lifetime, and as long as the elderly men who outlived him remained alive, these men had witnessed all the great things the Lord had done for Israel. Joshua, son of Nun, the Lord's servant, died at the age of 110. The people buried him in his allotted land in Timnath. Here's in the land, Timnath here's in the land country of Ephraim, north of Mount Gash. That entire generation passed away. A new generation grew up that had not personally experienced the Lord's presence or had seen what he had done for Israel. And so we'll stop right there, because my Bible, it says, starting in verse 11, a monotonous cycle. And so a couple questions real quick for what we just read. So what happens what happened after the generation of Joshua passed away, according to Scripture? Yeah, they're forgetting God. There's a cycle of disobedience, a reoccurring pattern of apostasy. When we think of apostasy, we actually think of it in terms of the New Testament, right? Where there's this false teaching, where people abandon the truth of the apostles or the truth of Jesus, and it starts messing up things in the church, and so we think of it in those terms. We don't really think of it in terms of it happening in the Old Testament, but boy, we really see it happening here, and we see it happening in very violent ways. But what are some things that really stick out to you as we close out from this story so far? Yes.
When Joshua was alive, God spoke to the people through Joshua, correct?
Right.
Is that okay?
At least through him, yes.
So after Joshua died, is there any indication on how he spoke to the people?
My guess is there's other prophets. There's other people that would have been, God would speak to them, but probably just not mentioned. But yeah, the people had an opportunity to listen, but have the opportunity to hear God. They're just not listening to God. Is what I gather.
Verses where they say the people asked God. They asked somebody to ask God, perhaps?
It's a good question. Well, again, there's prophets. As we go through the book of Judges, you'll see that there will always be a judge that rise up, and there will be like the chief prophet. A good example of that will be like some of these judges look like more like just Conan the Barbarian. But then a good example of a prophet who is not Conan, that is more like someone who will like, let me give you wise counsel, is like Deborah. Like Deborah is like a prophet who, like, we have a question, Deborah gives the answer. And we see that in chapter 4. And so these judges, probably even the ones that look like Conan the Barbarian, probably had this Holy Spirit giving them direction to give people that. But typically there are always, we see in Scripture, there were more than, it looks like there's always a lot of unspoken prophets that we don't read about. It just seems like they're just kind of there. Yes.
Go back to the time of Abraham, then God would speak to the fathers of the family, i.e. Abraham himself and so forth. And then as it got bigger, then God set up the priesthood so that he could talk to the people through the priesthood if he needed to.
Right.
And this is a time where they had the tabernacle, they had the Levites as the priesthood, and they also had prophets, not only Jews, but from the nations around, that had prophets of God as well.
Well, and getting back to like the Levites, you're right. They had, not only did they have the prophets, but they also had the law of God to direct them. So they kind of the message is very clear of what to do. Nothing really changes. Like, God, what do you want us to do? He's pretty much said, I want you to do what I asked you to do last year. Keep on doing that. Don't the rules have not changed. The message has not changed. Keep doing what I asked you to do. You haven't done it yet. Yes.
They had became lazy, I guess, to an extent, because they made the people they conquered slaves to do their labor, and also things were really good for them. They were in the land of milk and honey, basically, and they became very complacent with their lives and didn't need God.
Yeah, and one of the mistakes we make when we look at Judges without looking at Joshua is it actually is predicted in the book of Joshua. It says, look, you're going to go to a land, and it not only says it there, but also in the other books before that, where it says you're going to go to a land where there's things that were built for you and given to you that you did not build, that you did not earn, and you're going to get it, and the temptation is for you to forget that I gave it to you. You're right. It's going to be really easy for you to forget that God gave it to you.
Joshua's death, the big thing I noticed is that immediately they started worshiping Baal.
Yeah, that was unreal, right? Yeah, that's unbelievable. It's just so strange. Yes.
It's a similar challenge that we have today. What is real? And by that I mean we see physical things and they're tangible and we can relate to them, but trying to relate to an invisible God, a spiritual thing, I think there's just tremendous pull as people toward the physical and appreciating the physical as opposed to really valuing the spiritual world, the spiritual reality. And I think it's just a similar challenge that we have today. What's really real? Is the spirit world real?
Yeah.
Or is the physical world real? And we tend to default into that spirit, into the physical, and trying to.
Well, they went to a land that looked really rich and wealthy and powerful, and they were all serving all these false gods, and it looks pretty good. It looks like those false gods were serving those people pretty well, right? And so, it's tempting to go, well, those gods were working for those people pretty well.
chapter in the first part of Judges, the first and second chapter, not only did the people after Joshua and the people of his generation died, not only did they forget God, but they forgot Joshua and the men that God used to lead them out of Egyptian bondage to the promised land.
Right.
To draw a modern analogy, we need to not forget the people that God used to plant this church. People like Melinda Mudge's parents and Bill Netterville's parents and Steve Shira's parents. We need to be appreciative of the men that have gone on before us to make it possible for us to worship here.
Yeah, if you remember, well, taking time to remember spiritual milestones, it helps remember where you come from and what it took to get there and what it takes to move forward, and it makes you appreciate it and what needs to continue. That's a good point. We're running out of time. The answer, though, I think it's important I want to get back to one thing John said as we close out. These people had plenty, though, of people like to look to. They did have the Levitical system by that point. They did have the Levitical priest. They would have had prophets throughout the region as well. Not only did they have the Levitical system, not only did they have the law that's now written down, but they also would have had, again, prophets. So they had plenty to guide them. The question is, will they live by faith? Will they, by faith, trust what God has given them, and will they be obedient? And so far, they're struggling, but at times we do too. So we have to learn. We have to learn, make our own decisions. But let's pray. Father, thank you for the opportunity to get into this amazing book of Judges, to look at people who had significant challenges and help us to learn from them and to grow from their victories and their failures, to learn from them and to make decisions that will honor you and glorify you. And as Shelby mentioned a moment ago, to remember those who've gone before us and who have done wonderful things that in honor of you, to learn from them, to learn from their decisions, to learn from their success, but also to learn from their hard work, and to continue to put an effort to be faithful to you in every moment. In Jesus' name, amen. Again, don't forget to sign up for the picnic in the park, and also sign up for the work day, which is this Saturday.